Most other countries the member might like to mention.
Question number 6, Moana Mackey.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change Issues. What advice has he received about the impact of the Government's proposed changes to the emissions trading scheme contained in the Climate Change Response, Emissions Trading and Other Matters Amendment Bill on forestry? And what impact will these changes have on the Government's ability to meet its stated target of a 50% reduction in New Zealand greenhouse gas emissions from 1990 levels by 2050?
The Honourable Simon Bridges.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister for Climate Change Issues, I've had a broad range of advice in various forms, including the regulatory impact statements, meetings with officials and foresters. In general terms, the introduction of offsetting in this bill will be highly beneficial for foresters. It's also true that in the short term, some of the proposed changes may reduce incentives for forestry, especially where we are proposing to mitigate costs and burden on households and business. But forestry is a long-term game, so I'm advised changes in the bill are unlikely to have a significant impact in terms of a 2050 target.
Moana Mackey.
Is he aware that as a result of the current low price of carbon of less than $5, not only is no new planting being planned, but deforestation is accelerating as carbon foresters exit the ETS? And if so, why is New Zealand the only country that has not restricted or banned RMUs from our emissions trading scheme to stop us becoming a dumping ground for hundreds of millions of these cheap units?
The Honourable Simon
Speaker,
Bridges.
on behalf of the Minister, in fact, units are, and the price of units worldwide is a product of the global response and what's happening. And the fact of the matter is the member's wrong in her assertion. Even those who are critics of the government are saying that the forestry industry is not going to fade away, that replanting will occur, and that it's a long-term game that's here to stay.
Moana Mackey.
How can he claim that the price here in New Zealand is as a result of the global response, when even an increase in the European carbon price would not stabilise the price in New Zealand, when the cheap international units, which are or will be banned in every other scheme, will have nowhere to go but New Zealand, thereby collapsing the value of our carbon price, evidenced by the fact that thanks to these restrictions, Europe currently has an effective carbon price of $11 compared to $3 in New Zealand?
The Honourable Simon Bridges.
Speaker, on behalf of the Minister, look, the government recognises that the current low global carbon prices may affect incentives in this area. It's important to note that these low carbon prices, as I've already said, reflect the current level of global effort. The government could intervene in the short term to raise carbon prices to affect these incentives, but we have made the decision that now is not the time to raise costs to businesses and households during this period of economic recovery.
Moana Mackey.
Was the reason he backed down on the commitment he made in April to restrict cheap international units done to secure the vote of John Banks, who issued a press release claiming credit for the backdown, saying that he had convinced the Minister to change his mind by explaining that, quote, such a restriction on imported units would mean that no matter how low the price of carbon fell in other countries, New Zealanders would have to pay the NZU price currently set by government at $25?
The Honourable Simon Bridges.
Minister, no.
Moana Mackey.
Supplementary. Did he then explain to Mr Banks that there is no fixed NZU price of $25 set by the government, and that Mr Banks appears to be confusing the price cap with the carbon price? Or are we passing a bill that will kill off the very sector we are hugely reliant on to meet our emissions targets, based on the confused demands of a man who can now add the Climate Change Response Amendment Bill to the growing pile of documents he clearly has not read?
The Honourable Simon Bridges.
Minister, no.
Question number 7, Barbara Stewart.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Health and asks,